So part of our context here today, and you said that, out of school you went to work for Levy, and we're in the HR function. Can you contextualize why you found HR to be meaningful, and how maybe you might share why HR might be a really good path for some people to choose?
I think I'm so glad you're asking this because I think the assumption is often made that you have to be a people person to be in HR, that HR is full of people. And
You're stuttering. What?
and I would argue there are a good number of people in human resources. I fell into it as people often do because I needed work and got placed at Levy as a temporary HR assistant. And it turned into a wonderful 16-year career in a series of different titles. I had been a psychology major in college. So I knew about myself coming out of college that I was fascinated by other people and what made them tick, why people make the decisions they do. What I think I didn't learn as much as I wish I would have learned was how psychology played out within organizations. I have since learned about IO psychology and thought, oh my gosh, if I knew that was a thing, or if I had paid attention to it at least, when I was in school, I may have gone that route. But this idea that, beyond how psychology can be applied to simply ourselves and our relationships, that it can be applied to the workplace and to organizational, behavior and culture. Oh my goodness. Like that's what really, I think, inspired me about the HR work that I was beginning to do outside
Mm.
of college. But I still didn't have a full appreciation for what was possible until a few years in, when I had my scope sort of broadened, and I realized that HR is different things in different organizations.
Yeah.
And in some companies, it's just, making sure people get paid, they get signed up for benefits, and they get reprimanded when they've done something wrong. Sort of the personnel history to
Yes.
HR. And then you also hear about these forward-thinking organizations where HR is more people and culture. They're literally rebranding their HR departments to put a better foot or more attractive foot forward, where it's not simply about those transactional pieces, but it's about engaging people and inspiring them to do their best work. And yes, ensuring that everybody is sort of aligned around company vision and values, but it's going well beyond those transactional pieces that honestly can become rather mundane, and monotonous for folks who dream big and want something more out of their career. And I just think HR is such a broad, or can be such a broad umbrella, that there's room for so many different values, strengths, and personality styles.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, you don't have to just be a people person and opt yourself out if you don't, sort of resonate with that personality type. But, the again, kind of referencing the pandemic, you know, all of a sudden HR just soared to the front of the class because of hybrid and remote work.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden they became the CEO's, next most important person in the company. Is like, how do we make this work? Because people are under so much stress. The work environment has changed so radically on the fly. And I remember at Numerator, I think that our HR team did a phenomenal job of charting uncharted waters. Just like how did you figure all this crap out on the fly? Because there
Yeah.
was no playbook.
I'll tell you though, it was a blessing and a curse. And I try very intentionally to surround myself by HR pros who really want to think strategically about the work that they do.
Hmm.
Again, if their leadership and company support them in that effort. Sometimes they don't, and they're doing the more transactional work. But I'm around a lot of people who want to be a strategic voice in this conversation. And the blessing was that, yes, HR was sort of propelled to the forefront, as indispensable in some way to organizations. The downside was that HR folks started burning out left and right, and I think you heard similar stories come out of healthcare,
Yes.
and I'm not trying to compare, apples to oranges, certainly in terms of the work that is being done in those industries. But to this day, you have HR folks walking away from long held positions saying, you know what, it's just a lot to handle, that. And then when I'm supporting our teams, who's supporting me. And so much of the conversation I find myself involved with is, yes, how can you do your best work? How can you connect with the vendors, the resources, the career clubs of the world to ensure that you have the ability to do your best work? But how do you also remain focused on self-care, and
Mm.
who is watching out for you, who is supporting you when you are supporting your organization, and taking a more holistic approach to this very vital and important work that you've chosen to do?
No, that's such a good call out, and I don't know that I've read very much about what you just said, but I think it also speaks to how tuned in you are to the HR community, and everybody that you know that is able to express that to you. Um, I would I think that mental health, and we're not going to go super deep on this one, but mental health awareness, would also be a benefit that's come out of the pandemic, is that like, hey, these are real people here, not just work
Yeah,
producing units. And, Evelyn can't go to daycare because daycare's not open. And
right.
now all of a sudden we're trying to do our jobs here and, take care of a
Yeah,
baby and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like everybody's freaking out. And including, to your point, the HR leader who's trying to help hold up the organization so it doesn't just collapse under the weight of chaos. Um, Yet you can be exhausted by that. And so where are they getting respite?
and not only logistically are the HR folks inviting people back into the workplace, and a big mistake that was made during that time was saying back to work, and we want to distinguish between coming back to work and back to the workplace, because people
Mhm.
had been at work the entire time. Inviting people back to the workplace and saying, you know what, bring your whole self with you. We heard a lot of that. Bring your whole self with you to work, because we wanted to embrace individuals and everything they had been through. And even those HR pros weren't skilled to handle and to receive what was coming back to work with their teams, the grief
Mhm.
and the trauma, and people had lost loved ones and had been sick themselves, and the political strife and the social injustices that had taken place during that time was a lot for people to carry on their shoulders back
Yeah.
with them to work. And so I think it was a wake up call to people, HR or not, leaders in general, to say, if you're going to invite people to be their whole selves and bring all of who they are back to work, we have to be in a position to receive and support and celebrate what we're going to see when people do report back to the office. So I think it's an ongoing issue, one that we're still trying to figure out in some ways, but I'm just so grateful that HR in a lot of organizations is being positioned to lead in this way.